This story is called Lucas Takes 40 Winks. Once upon a time, as all the best stories go, there was a tiny mouse who lived in a nest underneath the oak tree of a church garden. It was a warm, cosy nest he had built himself. It kept him cool in summer and warm in winter. He was a brown mouse with black, piercing eyes, twitchy whiskers and a pink tail. His name was Lucas. And as far as Lucas was concerned, there was nothing better after a morning's work of foraging for acorns than lying in a sunbeam and taking an afternoon nap. But sunbeams are hard to find underneath the branches of a great oak tree, so Lucas decided to look for a nice, quiet, sunny place for his 40 winks. 40 winks in mouse talk is taking a nap. Nearby, the fountain trickled. "Too noisy," Lucas said. He scurried to the mulberry tree, but Cory Dog was barking. "Too noisy," Lucas said. He scampered to the office. The phone was ringing. "Too noisy," Lucas said. And then his piercing black eyes saw the church. Now that's going to be a quiet place, he thought, and ran inside. And sure enough, it was absolutely silent. "Ah," Lucas said, "peace and quiet, the perfect place for a nap." And he sang his mousy song. "I will come into the church like a little mouse. I will whisper, I won't shout, like a little mouse. On my tiptoes, I will whisper, like a little mouse. I will come into the church like a little mouse. I will whisper, I won't shout, like a little mouse. On my tiptoes, I will whisper, like a little mouse." Squeak, squeak. The perfect place for a nap, Lucas thought. But first, a snack. Lucas always liked a nibble before a nap, so off he scurried to the church garden to see what was in season. Sometimes he'd find a strawberry, sometimes a carrot. This particular day, he found a large red tomato. "Cherry tomato," the sign said, and he put it in his mouse sack and took it into the church. Once he was inside, he looked around at the red windows and picked the brightest sunbeam, lay down, took out his tomato from his mouse sack and began to nibble. Nibble, lying in the sun and thinking. He was a thinking mouse. He liked to ponder, he liked to think. He'd think big thoughts and he'd think little thoughts as he munched on the tomato. He'd wonder how God could love all the creatures of the entire world because there were so many mice alone. He thought big thoughts like, how could God love the cat next door? Remember, Lucas was a mouse. And he'd think small thoughts like how juicy the tomato was and how good it tasted. And just before he fell asleep, he'd sing a little song. It was a song he learned in church. It was his communion song. He liked it. He'd sing this song each time he took his nap. He would put himself in his sleeping position, which was curled up with his tail behind his ears, and he would have his nap, or as Lucas would say, he'd take his 40 winks. And after his nap, Lucas always said the same thing. He'd waken up and he would say, there's nothing better than 40 winks in a sunbeam.